Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. I'm Gus Kattengell, along with Mr. Jim Eichenhofer for Pelicans.com. And I don't know if you can tell, but we're in a good mood. Why? Well, the Pelicans have gone 2-1 since we last saw you. Jim, let's just start there. We got a lot to get into, plus part two of DeAndre Jordan joining us, and we'll talk a little bit more about his career and him, really being an influence and a big voice on this team. But, man, 2-1 is 2-1, two big wins for this team.
It feels like going back a couple weeks that we've seen them play better. Some of the 30-point losses that they had at the beginning of the season, it feels like those have gone away. There's been so many more nights where even if they didn't win, you were okay with the performance and the effort and a lot of elements of the performance. But now that they're actually getting wins, it does feel really good. Not only were they 2-1 this past week over the 7 days, but the one loss that they had was a 3-point loss to the Spurs, who, as we know now, are in the NBA Cup Finals and just knocked off OKC, ended their long winning streak. So it's been a really encouraging stretch. The record, obviously, they still need to add more wins to that to get back to closer to 500. But it's been positive lately for sure, and it's been, I think, gratifying, satisfying for the players to get those wins.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the team had mentioned, and interim head coach James Borrego has been mentioning as well, Jim, as to why the team's been playing a little bit better as of late and has led to wins. Practice time. They've actually gotten to practice. Continuity. You've had lineups working together, even Bryce McGowan's being in a starting lineup and those guys doing that. And then working on certain aspects of their game. You mentioned that Spurs game. It was a loss disparity on the three-point shooting, but franchise records in points in the paint in some of these wins here as well. And in that win at Chicago, you saw lots of threes being attempted, points in the paint, continuity. We'll get into some more players being available, but I think those are some reasons why the Pels have looked better the last couple of games.
Yeah, and I think to add to, all those things are definitely true, but I think the defense has been a little bit better as well. Point. To go from, near the bottom of the stats defensively to even if you're 20th in defense, I think that's a big improvement from what it's been. And we've seen there's a million different stats and different pieces of evidence that show how much better the offense has been in the recent weeks. So you don't have to be the best team defensively in the NBA to get some of these wins, but you can't be near the bottom and expect to get results. So the fact that they've been better defensively, they only gave up 104 points against Chicago, and you combine that with the way the offense has been, I really like the fact that they've had some games recently where the offense has been the reason that they won, and then they've had some other games where the offense wasn't elite, the Chicago game being the best example of that, and they still were able to win.
You need to follow him on Twitter because after the game yesterday, I thought you put out something really good. You didn't give up 30 points.
In any of the quarters.
And I know Coach Borrego was touching on his goal's 25 or less. So it's around that ballpark, and that'll get you a chance for a win. Another pleasant surprise in Chicago, and I say pleasant because it was ahead of schedule, Zion Williamson. We see him warming up. We had heard rumblings that maybe he could be ready to play. He plays. He came off the bench, and obviously the ice rink and the thing was for the Blackhawks was still set up. So I called it the hockey line change. It was so interesting seeing Zion, Jordan Poole, Jose Alvarado coming in on a line shift like that. Yeah. But what do you make out of Zion's minutes, man? He led the team in scoring at halftime with 11 points.
Yeah, I thought he looked very good, and it was funny. I had to look this up because I couldn't remember. Has there ever been a time where he came off the bench? They've used him in a lot of different ways. There's been stretches where they had him in minute bursts in the bubble, for example. They've had times where, he's been sitting out back-to-backs and then brought him back from injury multiple times. But, that was the first time in 225 career games that he came off the bench. And I at least in the initial usage of it, I thought it was a really interesting look that you're presenting to some of these other teams.
Yeah, and to your point, you had Bryce McGowan's in there who'd seen some games as a starter. He's also part of that second unit. And I think what's interesting, too, is, and I'm not getting caught up into the starting or bench thing because he closed out the game. So you bring him in little later than starting the game, but he closed out the game and had that amazing alley-oop, from Jeremiah Fears to, be the dagger, as the Graph likes to call it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As we record this on Monday morning, we don't know if they're going to stick with this. We don't know, maybe they stick with it for a little while and then they go back to the setup that they had before. But I mean, to me, this is one thing that James Borrego commented about kind of after the game Sunday night too, was, I mean, they've tried a bunch of different things to keep Zion healthy. They've tried, having him not play back-to-backs, having him play back-to-backs. Maybe this is something that will work. Maybe this is bringing him off the bench, especially if you're going to keep his minutes down to a certain level. To me, it does get a little awkward, a little clunky if you have a player on a minute restriction, say 25 or less, and you're trying to start him. Yeah. Because sometimes if that's the case, you kind of there's like a long stretch. He might play the first 7 or 8 minutes of the game, then he has to sit for a long time, then he might play the first 6-7 minutes of the third quarter.
Right.
It's just hard to kind of manage that in the scope of a 48-minute game. But, I mean, maybe this is something that maybe they're onto something with this, that if you have him, we talked about this a lot last season, that they had him under 30 minutes, and it seemed like that was effective and
energetic,
it worked. Yeah. So if that number is lower than that, maybe the way that you handle it best is to bring him off the bench. And I mean, I know there's a lot of opponents that are like, we don't necessarily want to see a 6-man right. like him with the capabilities that he has.
Well, still got another 2 weeks in the month of December, and in January, February, March, and some of April. So still a lot of basketball to get to. That said, we always love to do the beginning of the week with a little player to watch, player of the week, and then some trending numbers on the upcoming matchup. So, Jim, let's start with the player of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Trey Murphy. He averaged 25.3 points per game. He averaged 6.3 rebounds. He mentioned this recently that he would like to be shooting threes a little bit better. I think actually he talked to you guys about that on the radio broadcast post-game in his walk-off interview. He was 5 for 15 last week on threes, which is only 33% below his standard. One thing that I think is interesting about him, his season overall, that I didn't realize until recently, he's actually tied for 6th in the NBA in steals per game at 1.7. His career high in that category, I think, was 1.1, 1.2. So, I mean, he's made a big jump in that category, in that area of the game. I think defensively he's definitely gotten better, and we see just the tools that he has. He's a big dude. He's athletic. He's got long arms. So, I mean, it's been a positive to see him make that impact on the defensive end.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, he's a player that at the beginning of the season said, hey, I want to be an all-star player. In order to do that, you need to play defense, you play offense, you need to help your team when they don't have the players. He's been able to do that a lot. All right, player to watch coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing right now is there's a bunch of different options in this category that I could have gone with. I mean,
you have a whole roster.
Right, that too. But even that, just guys playing well, guys that have done some really interesting things on the court lately. Jeremiah Fears, I think, has had a really good stretch. But I went with Jordan Poole. He's been back for just the 2 games from his injury. He's averaged 19 points in only 26.5 minutes per game in those 2. And the Pelicans have actually won the last 3 times that he's played. So, I mean, we're looking for positive stats that you can point to and say, okay, this guy's making an impact on winning and losing.
Right.
They won the last game that he played in before the injury against Charlotte, and now they have the win against Portland and Chicago. So, I mean, I think that gives you a little taste of how much he can help.
Yeah, he brings that energy, too, as well. And to your point, one of the comments I made when Zion got in there, immediately 3 Bulls jerseys. I mean, I'm like, I can't – sometimes you got shielded, from Coach Borrego. I'm like, I don't need to know where Z is. 3 Bulls jerseys in one area, that's where Zion goes. They're clogging the paint. And obviously, I'm not a mathematician, but if 3 are in one area, Jordan Poole's going to have some space to go find a place in the arc to shoot the 3. So to your point, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately, those 2 guys haven't gotten a chance to play together very much, but I mean, it will be interesting to see what they can do. And I mean, the numbers from the bench lately, points-wise, have been incredible. So if they can keep that up, I think maybe we'll start to see them string together even more wins than what they've had.
All right, by the next time we chat with you, the Pels would have taken on the Rockets, the Pacers, and the Mavericks. So give me some trending numbers for those 3 matchups.
Okay, Gus. For Houston, the trending number is 41.5, and that is their offensive rebounding percentage. That's one of the best offensive rebounding percentages in the NBA in the last 20, 30 years, honestly.
Wow.
I mean, if you look at some of the lineups that they put on the court with Steven Adams and some of their Şengün, I mean, they're to be able to collect more than 4 out of every 10 of your own missed shots is something that we don't see very often. I mean, it's crucial for the Pelicans. One thing that's encouraging for New Orleans is the last 3 weeks, New Orleans is 10th in rebounding percentage overall and 14th in defensive rebounding percentage. If you look at the way that they started the season, those are huge improvements. So not only are we seeing the offense has played a lot better the last few weeks, the defense has been probably what I would say incrementally better,
right?
But the rebounding also has improved. So, I mean, you add all that stuff up together, and maybe we shouldn't be that surprised that they're getting wins.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, what about the Pacers?
The Pacers, the trending number for them is 16, and that is they've already used 16 different starting lineups.
Wow.
The Pelicans have used 15. So they're not that far ahead of New Orleans in that category. I think for people who watched the Pacers last season and had that incredible run to the finals, obviously Tyrese Halliburton's out for the season. Aaron Nesmith is out right now, and I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. Those are two of the guys that, in some of their miraculous comebacks in the fourth quarter, made a bunch of big threes. Exactly. I remember in particular they had a game against the Knicks where they were down by 15 with like 4 minutes left, and both of those guys made a bunch of trays. So it's just a totally different Pacers team than what we saw last season, and their record reflects that, unfortunately, for them. So, I mean, with, again, the state that they're in right now, which is similar, actually more extreme than some of the teams that the Pelicans have played lately, it's hopefully a chance for the Pelicans to get into the win column.
All right, and finally, a team that I feel like we've played 15 times already this season, the Dallas Mavericks. We know all about this team. Mm-hmm. What interesting trending number can you give me?
The trending number for them is 5-1, and that is their record in their last 6 games as we head into Monday. They were 5-15 to start the season, so it's kind of a very neat kind of comparison. Started the season 5-15. Lately, they've gone 5-1. One of the key guys that has been part of their turnaround is on a 2-way contract, Ryan Nembhard, who's the brother of a Pacers guard. A rookie guy has come in. They moved Cooper Flagg out of point guard, moved him kind of more to his natural position. He just seems a lot more comfortable. So the Mavericks have played so much better than they did earlier in the season. As you mentioned, I mean, the Pelicans have already played them twice, but both of those were in Dallas. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting a chance to play them here and hopefully take advantage of the home court. I think it was an exciting win the first time that the team went to Dallas. The second game was one that they could have won as well. Yeah. Unfortunately, our old friend Najee Marshall made a 3 in a crucial spot. But those 2 games were really good games. I mean, you were there in person for both of them. So it could be another kind of dramatic game that comes down to the end. But hopefully, if the Pelicans play a little bit better and they play the way that they have been, maybe they can win and it won't come down to the last shot of the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Both teams playing better than the last time they met. So let's see what takes place there. Well, we really enjoyed DeAndre Jordan when he sat down with us, so much so we made it a 2-part series with him. So now here's our conversation with DeAndre, a little bit more on what has gotten him to 18 years now in the NBA. Enjoy. 18 years in the league. When you look back at it just overall in its entirety, what stands out to you the most?
Ooh.
Hard. Because I was there in Denver when you went back, and obviously you love there.
Yeah.
Won a championship there. The Clipper days, I know he can't wait to ask you a little bit about that here a little bit. And so I don't know, man. When you look back at it, what stands out? Is it a period of time, or is it all the collective?
I think it's a collective, man. My first 10 years in LA were amazing, and then I had some stops in between. My time in Brooklyn playing with my friends was great. And then, going to Denver, being there for 3 seasons, winning our first year was great. And that brotherhood and bond that we'll share forever is amazing. And then all the other individual accolades in between were great. So I think it's just a journey in itself for me that is so memorable. And I'm still building memories now. So I think it's just all those things that have brought me to this point in my career.
You mentioned the Denver championship.
Yeah.
I mean, are there certain things that you look at with that? I mean, you were on very successful teams before that as well, so it's not like that was the first time you were on a team that accomplished a lot. But to be able to win a title with that team, are there certain traits that team had, maybe the way the locker room was, just general stuff that you want to try to apply to every other team that you play for, or things that you want to see that you want to try to build toward?
Yeah, well, I think that those teams, especially that first team that we had, we were just so connected, man. We had a mixture of young guys in their prime, vets, that were just so selfless. We had one goal in mind, and that was to win a championship. And I think once everybody is on that same wavelength, and we have the same goal in our minds, it creates a stronger manifestation, And we have to put the work in. And it helps when you have Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr., guys like that. And then you had other role guys who were also available to do what they needed to do. But I think just the camaraderie and the synergy we had on and off the floor really, really helped that.
It seemed like that team just had, you could probably say this about every championship team, but they had like the pieces all fit together.
Yeah,
it seemed like the roles were so perfect, and everybody knew exactly like, this is what I do and I'm going to do it well. You mentioned Jokic. We talked about obviously Derek Queen earlier, and I'm not sure if you had heard this, but when he was in college, his teammates called him Baby Joker because of some of the similarities. So I felt like we had to ask you about just some of the, having played with both of those guys, if there's certain things. I'm not trying to say Derek Queen is already at that level of player, but just
don't give him.
I'm not trying to say that.
Don't put that much pressure on him this early,
But just certain things about the way that they play on the court that you see that are.
Oh no, you definitely see it for sure. Like the way DQ gets a rebound and brings it up, and everybody kind of flares out to their positions and let them kind of play make in a delay auto kind of situation. Nikola does that as well. The way that DQ can kind of play make from all three levels of the floor, and his just variety of his skill set it's crazy. Now there are some similarities between those two guys, and I'm sure like Nikola is somebody that he watches and I'm sure wants to emulate. I mean, I would hope so. Like he's a 3-time MVP and all of these different things. So you see flashes, and I'm just excited for DQ's growth.
Yeah. I mean, do you see some similarities in terms of like, it's like an off timing kind of game, like an off beat, like it's just a different pace that he plays at.
Yeah, they don't. I would say both of those guys don't let you speed them up. They're going to play at their pace the entire time. They're not rushed, really.
Yeah.
And if you see rushing out of DQ, it's only because he's young, so he wants to get to his move quick at times. But more times than not, from what I've seen, he's extremely patient, and he has the footwork. He's not rushed into certain shots. He has touch with both hands, which I love to see. And yeah, like I said, he's extremely talented, man, and he's so young. And once he puts it together and his body comes a little bit better, and he I don't know, it's exciting because he has such a high ceiling. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people watching and listening to this can tell some of the reasons why having DeAndre on the team is valuable in terms of the mentorship that you can provide for some of the younger big guys on the team. I wanted to ask you too about Carlo Makovic and Yves Missi in terms of these guys are in their second year, so it's super early in the process. But as a guy that has obviously a ton of experience playing the same position, what are some of the things that you focus on with those two guys, and some of the things that you tell them in terms of things that they can keep improving? Yeah,
I mean, well, like you said, they are totally different, and I can kind of relate to those guys because, like, unlike DQ, like we didn't get a lot. Well, I didn't get a lot of plays ran for me, and I wasn't. I hubbed a little bit of the offense, but like DQ is like a big part of our offense. So for Carlo and Yves, I feel like I relate to those guys because of our energy level, like versatile bigs, able to switch at a point in time in my career, switch pick and rolls and run the floor, and super athletic. So those guys are similar but different because I feel like they both are just extreme athletes. You know what I mean? And they protect the rim, they dunk the basketball, they run like gazelles. So it's cool to have a variety of bigs on your team that can do different things. And they both have been great at times this year. So, and they are in the same unit a lot of times. So it's a matchup nightmare for those guys to be out there together, and I like watching them play.
So Chris Paul wasn't pushing for point DJ?
No, only in like dire situations.
That brings up, I feel like I have to ask you about the 2011 trade with the Clippers where Chris Paul went to you guys. And obviously for us, from our standpoint, it was a huge moment. It was kind of a turning point for the franchise. You could kind of divide the franchise history into pre-Chris Paul and then post-Chris Paul. I mean, honestly, unfortunately, it didn't turn out great for us in terms of the result of that trade. You were on the other side of it, obviously, and benefited greatly from. What do you remember from for example, from the day of that trade, do you have any? Because from our end, we were like, if initially he was traded to the Lakers, it got vetoed, and then he ended up with the Clippers. But I mean, what do you remember from that time?
I remember Blake and I being extremely excited.
Sure.
We were able to play with the point guard, you know. And we were like, man, we're gonna get so many lobs. This is about to be crazy, you know. And we were only thinking about dunks at that time because I'm like, no, he's gonna throw me more lobs, and he throws you for sure. Like, I'm gonna get a relationship with him, and you know. But no, I think that we were just looking at it from not even just like scratching the surface. You know, we weren't looking at it like, oh, like now we're gonna try to compete for championships and we're gonna make the playoffs every year. And CP came in and he instilled a winning environment with that organization and with us as younger players. So I was really excited for him to be there. And a lot of the things that I hear myself talking about now to younger players were some of the things that he was getting on us about or teaching us about. So I really appreciate my time with CP. He's still one of my great friends to this day. So I'm always rooting for him. But our time with the Clippers was amazing, and I learned so much. And being teammates with those guys for years was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I know people have talked about this in the NBA and the media for a while, that we're getting to the point where it's like people talk like the only thing that matters is championships. You got one with Denver, obviously, but when you look back at that era with the Clippers, though, do you take some satisfaction from, like, people knew the history of the Clippers, that it wasn't great. And if you look back at that period, it was like it was turned them into a team that contended and was like successful. And I heard somebody say a stat the other day that unfortunately for them might get broken this season, that they haven't had a losing season longer than any franchise in the league, an active streak. So when you look back at that, I mean, how do you look at that time?
I mean, I enjoy that time. I think, like you said, like the numbers speak for themselves. You know, CP and Blake and myself, and we had a lot of other teammates as well. But, you know, we were able to help change a franchise's culture. I feel like, and, you know, we had a lot of guys that came before us, and they definitely did what they were supposed to do when they were there, and they tried to change that culture. And I think that we always give them the credit that they deserve. However, I think that our group, when we came in, we took that to another level. And that's something that can't be taken away from our team. And I thought that was huge. And what we did there was great. We didn't win a championship, like you said. However, I think that we did a lot of other great things there. So I'm really proud of that.
I find it interesting, too, when you look back, and it kind of goes back to my initial question with you about how do you look back at your 18 years? And I think it's interesting because as we go and talk about those teams, it almost feels like bigs are back, right? In this league. What I mean by that is not only you talk about Jokic and everyone's talking about, hey, you can have another one again this year. But I'm just looking at this young season already that the Pels have played, and they're playing bigs after bigs after bigs. I mean, you see what Edie means to Memphis. You know, he sits down, Pels made a move. I mean, just see how important Derek Queen is to this team and stuff.
Absolutely,
Yet also you've seen pace in 3 points. You kind of had a little bit mix of both there with the Clippers, right? I mean, you and Blake, you're talking about those were bigs that played above the rim, were exciting, but the pace, the pushing of it. But now there's also, you know, it went to 3-point shooting a couple of years ago, and I still feel three is big. But I feel the bigs are back, man. How do you kind of view where the league is right now?
I mean, it's all a carousel. I feel like you know, it'll come back around. When I first came in, it was a 2-big league, and then it kind of got guard oriented. Then, like you said, 3-pointers, and you see a lot of teams that. I mean, everybody isn't doing it because they can't do it well, but there are some teams that play a 2-big lineup and they are successful. I mean, you saw last year Oklahoma City, they did it, they won the championship. Houston's doing it. Cleveland does it. And a ton of other teams, you know, we do it at times. So it's good to be able to have that versatility in your units and with your team.
You know, we focused a ton on some of the guys that are really relatively new to the league in terms of first and second year guys, but I was curious to what your thoughts are on some of the guys that are kind of in the middle, fifth year or so of their career. Just the core here between, you know, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, Trey Murphy all came in 2021. I think we have a question from Trey, actually.
We do. We have a question from him. He's a big fan. He says, who is your favorite Pelicans parent?
Oh, Trey's mom.
Say, so
what's
question.
the story?
It was a loaded Trey asked that question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Trey to ask.
Yeah,
to
she's a basketball junkie. She knows everything, defenses, offenses, rotations. So like I really enjoy talking the game with her. She's
funny.
amazing. And like she will call us out. And I know, but it's good though, because you can tell like some people just, oh well, this guy only had 5 points, but they don't watch the entire game. She watches the game every night. She's in the same seat. So I really love that. I'm sure Trey gets it a lot more than we do at home. But she's just an amazing person, and she really cares about our progress and our success as a team. And so that's really good to have around.
I know you were playing in Denver, I think, when this happened, but there was a moment last season, the season before, where she came in and sat down in the press conference after the game, and Trey was like, say, 6 for 8 on free throws, which for anybody else is a decent night, but for him, it was like a disaster that he missed 2 free throws. So she came into the press conference afterward and took the microphone and asked him about his missed free throws.
Oh, I need to see that clip. I gotta see that.
So she's definitely very involved in the even in the post-game media press conferences.
I really enjoy her, man. She's a huge fan. She knows the game, and I respect the hell out of her. So she's great.
It's all about accountability, man.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, man, take a look at the camera. Pels fans are watching. Give us a message.
Pels fans, stay with us, man. It's been a journey. We're trending in the right direction, and just stay with us. It's going to be a long season, but we're excited.
Sounds good. I'm sure you co-signed the fact that to start this week, 80-plus points in the paint, man. I mean, that's a lot of points. We're doing it, man.
And it's early in the week, too.
I love it. That's DeAndre Jordan. Thank you for your time, man. Appreciate it as always.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks.
Yep, that's Mr. Jim Eichenhofer from Gus Kattengell. Thank you for checking us out here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.